trends of the last 10 years is the growth of these large emerging economies and their increase. They have increased their trade and investment ties with Africa very, very rapidly. And I think what people don't realize, I think, is the speed of change. And I think this is actually accelerating now in the financial crisis. So you see that if you compare the exports of Africa to China from 2007 to 2009, you see a 64% increase. But the exports to UK have fallen by 45%. Exports to Japan by 35%.
I have a two-part question for you. First of all, is China the main trading partner in the developing world right now with Africa? Is that
no,
what country is the main?
USA is the main trading partner.
But and within the developing world, within China, India,
yes,
Russia,
absolutely,
Brazil, it's China. Okay. So generally speaking, the developing world is getting a larger share of trade with Africa. Is that as a result of the emergence of these countries and their growing economic power, or is it a result of the fact that we've seen a global slowdown that's affected Europe and the US very badly?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of both those things. I should say that the figures I mentioned are not oil. They don't include the oil exports. If you include the oil exports, it's down everywhere because of the price drop. But if you take those out, the figures I've given you, it's a combination of the growth of the emerging economies and the crisis which has hit the advanced economies. But the emerging economies also have established cooperation arrangements during this decade. And this is a critical trend. And they have a vision, if you like. They have a different vision of development cooperation to the northern partners. And that vision is rooted in promoting trade and investment through official finance.
Let's talk about what needs to change right now in the relationship between Africa and other developing countries. Africa, we know, exports agricultural products, minerals, crude oil, and other sort of natural resources, shall we say. It imports manufactured goods. What needs to be done? How can Africa change that?
Well, that relationship is the North-South relationship. It's also the South-South. It's also the South-South relationship between Africa and these developing, emerging economies. The way, at the present moment, I think the way that it will change is that Africa itself needs to proactively try to integrate these new South-South relations into its development strategies. And it also needs to negotiate with its new southern partners.
So how does Africa actually do that? I mean, can you give us some examples that you talk about, building regional infrastructure, knowledge transfer, building the technology. How do we put that into practice?
Well, I think I can give you a clear example, actually. I brought along a bag which is made in Rwanda. And this was made by a firm which is owned by an Indian who went to Rwanda to close down a factory there, a textile factory. And what he discovered was that the conditions for producing silk were better than in southern India.
Wow.
And he discovered that, and so then he brought some mulberry leaves from southern India. There was a Korean who helped him with the kind of silkworm eggs. They started producing the raw material. Then he took Rwandans to southern India to train them in the kind of the reeling, and built local hand looms, sent the silk to Bangalore to test it, and then brought experts back to develop products like ties or bags. And this bag was, in fact, it's made in Rwanda. It was for the Obama campaign.
Right.
It's cotton rather than silk, but it's a product from Rwanda, and it's based on this these types of ties which you know, are between the emerging economies and Africa. Now, I think the governments need to think of these new opportunities and facilitate them. So Brazil, for example, is actively doing this in terms of biofuel transfer. It set up a research institute in Ghana. And I think the thing about China as well is it's investing in infrastructure. This is extremely important. If you look at the official financial flows from these emerging economies to Africa, they tend to be focused on things like infrastructure. Right. The northern donors focus on social sectors, health and education.